Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend with me today. This is going to be a little bit of a different show because I'm going to talk to you really about me. um, I probably in some way every show I do is about me because it's certainly about the way that I'm thinking. It Most shows have to do with thoughts that I'm processing, situations I've encountered, whether in my own life or through my coaching practice. But today is going to be just a little bit different because I am going to talk specifically about me. And today is April 6th of 2015. And today's a special day in my life because it marks the 1 year anniversary. Now, today is Monday, April 6th. So last year, on this particular Monday, the date was April 7th. But 1 year ago today, I went into the hospital to have what was supposed to be a routine, in as much as any kind of major surgery is routine. But I had been diagnosed back in February of 2014 with an advanced stage of prostate cancer. I had just turned 50 years old, and so that's a very young age for a man to get prostate cancer. And so I got my diagnosis in February, and then I had my surgery scheduled for exactly a year ago today. And what I want to do on the anniversary of my surgery is just sort of talk about what the last year has been like for me. And so, in doing so, I'm not quite sure exactly how long I'll talk. I will probably get a little emotional about this because it has been an amazing year in so many ways. My life is so radically different than it was this time last year. In some ways, it's really no different at all. But there have been significant changes in who the person Bruce Van Horn is, and I want to take a couple of minutes to just talk about that. I mean, first of all, I love the fact that this past weekend was Easter. And I love the not only the tradition, the holiday of Easter. Being a Christian, Easter is the biggest holiday within the Christian calendar. No, it's not Christmas, it's Easter. The day that we recognize victory over the grave and rebirth and this renewal of life. And I love the fact that it happens this time of year, and the timing could not have been more perfect. There have been certainly times, and for those of you who live in some places, this Easter weekend was cold and snowy and didn't feel very much like spring. But here in Richmond, Virginia, it was a glorious, glorious weekend. Flowers are coming up out of the ground, trees are blossoming, and it just represents the fact that the long, hard, cold winter has ended and life is starting over again. There is regeneration. And so that's what I love not only about the Easter metaphor, but also just the perfect timing of it in my life as a chance to look back and think about all the things that I have gone through and to say thank you. Thank you, God, that I am alive. I am still alive. And what an amazing year it has been. So without belaboring the point too much, um, I really do believe that had I gone through what I've gone through in the last year, had I done that several years ago, 5, 6, 7 years ago, I do not know that I would have had the mental, emotional fortitude to go through it. I would have easily lapsed into victim thinking, because that's where I was for most of my adult life. I'd gone through some really, really hard things in my life. I've gone through bankruptcies. I've gone through the death of a child. I've gone through lots and lots and lots of stuff. Um, but the situations that I went through from February of last year up until this point, a year ago today of last year, were arguably, I think, the most stressful period of my life. Not only was I dealing with a cancer diagnosis, a significant cancer diagnosis at a young age, but I was also going through a very personally stressful time. I was dealing with a personal situation that was creating immense pain for myself, for my family, for other people that I was associated with. And there was just a lot of stress, a lot of pain, a lot of uncertainty about how all of it would play out. How, so none of us knew what the end result of it would be, but the pain and the stress of it all was significant. However, I have been doing, the stuff that I talk about on my podcast. It's not just theory for me. I am telling the story of the things that I have done in my own life to become who I am. And when I'm working with coaching clients, um, I don't know of many scenarios where I've suggested somebody do something that I haven't at least tried myself and had success with it. I can I can say to somebody, they might have a suggestion, and I'll say, you know what, I tried that and it just didn't produce the results in my life that I wanted. But for me, life is radically different than it was a number of years ago. And so, what that's a big preamble. So, anyway, let's just jump right into this. And where I want to go with this is just to let you know that when I had my cancer surgery 1 year ago today, there were complications. I was supposed to go in. It was supposed to be an hour and a half surgery. I was supposed to spend the night, maybe 2 nights at the most, in the hospital, and then go home. But that's not the way. That's not the way it was planned, or that was the plan, but it certainly was not God's plan. And there were complications on the operating table, and I lost a significant, in the neighborhood of 70% of my blood on the operating table through no fault of the surgeon, I might add. I had an anatomic anomaly that most men do not have, and so when my doctor cut into me to remove my prostate, there were a lot of other things that he had to take care of in the meantime, and those that required him allowing me to bleed while he did the surgery. So, nevertheless, when I came back into my hospital room, things were not exactly as I had expected them to be. I was coming out of anesthesia, and there were concerned faces on nurses and doctors and my parents who were there when I woke up. And I could pretty much immediately tell that things did not go exactly as they were supposed to have gone. And so, as I started to come back around, I got pieces of information and found out. But needless to say, I spent, instead of spending 1 night, possibly two, I was 5 nights in the hospital. And my recovery process in the hospital was painful because they were not able to give me the pain medications that normally a patient who receives a radical retropubic prostatectomy, how's that for a big word, the pain meds to help you recover from that. I was not able to receive those because my blood pressure was so low. So I pretty much had to do it drug-free. And I also had to stay on my back pretty much most of the time because whenever they would try to elevate the bed, my blood pressure would drop and I would pass out. And so anyway, a lot of thoughts ran through my mind while I was in the hospital. And You can do a couple things when you're facing difficult situations. You can, you know, you can tell yourself a story. Well, let me back up. You are going to tell yourself a story. It's not that you can, it's that you will, and that you are going to. You actually can't help but tell yourself a story. The question is, what kind of story are you going to tell yourself? Now, for me, I knew that I really couldn't tell myself much of a story into the future because that would take more energy than I had available to me at the time. I had to tell myself a story about right now and how was I going to get through the next 1 minute, the next 5 minutes dealing with the pain. Um, and I really was able to let the anxiety of what was going on with me, the anxiety of what was still going on in my personal life, I was able to let that go by simply focusing on the moment. I've talked about this before. I would take a breath and I would listen to the beat of my heart, and then I would exhale and I would feel the air exit my lungs. And for that one breath and for those heartbeats, I would say, thank you, thank you, thank you. Um, and I really was thankful. I bathed my life in gratitude for just being alive, for being able to breathe. And as I've said before on my show, one of the things that you can do if you're going through a difficult time in your life is to practice this. Because here's a fact, an absolute, irrefutable fact. If you are listening to my voice, if you are breathing, if your heart is beating, you have in this moment absolutely everything that you need. Now, listen to that, okay? You have everything that you need. Now, I didn't say you have everything that you want, okay? But when you have everything that you need, because if your heart is beating at this moment, you are alive. Therefore, you have everything necessary for sustaining life at this moment. Everything else, including the fact that you can hear my voice, because hearing is not is not necessary for life. Vision is not necessary for life. Just ask, read the biography of Helen Keller, okay? Could neither see nor hear, but still lived an amazing life. Not a life without difficulty, but still an amazing life. So if your heart is beating, you have everything that you need. Anything outside of that is a gift. It's a gift for which you can say, thank you. So for each breath, if you're going through a high anxiety moment, slow it all down. No reference to the past, no projection to the future. Just say, thank you for this moment and for anything that's extra. So if you get to hear a bird chirping, if you get to see the smiling face of somebody who loves you, that's a gift. So then you can start adding all the other things that you have in your life that if those were to be taken away from you, you would miss them. Those are all gifts. And you can say thankful. Yes, you can say thank you and feel gratitude for that. And when you really, truly feel gratitude for those things, it's hard to have anxiety. And so that's what I had to do. I did that. And so now, 1 year later, when I was lying in that hospital bed a year ago today, I had no idea what the next hour would be like. I had no idea what the next week would be like. And I certainly had no idea that 1 year from then that I would be standing here in front of a microphone talking to you with this huge smile on my face simply because I'm so happy to be alive. and so happy to have a story and so happy to have a message that I can share with you wherever you are in the world. Okay? And so, no, I could not have predicted that. I do know that even though those were really difficult times, there's a great song that I loved long before all of this happened to me, but the practicality of this one song by a Christian musician, his name was Rich Mullins. He passed away in 1997, but Rich Mullins wrote a song called Home. And in that song, there is a lyric that always sent shivers up my spine, but now does even more so because it basically has come true in my life. And the line says this: "What I'd have settled for, you've blown so far away. But what you brought me to, I thought I could not reach." Okay, so I apologize for getting emotional about that. But I look back on my life and the things that I wanted and the things that I thought were important to me and the things that I was striving for were things that were stripped away from me. And I didn't understand why. I didn't understand that why, when I thought things were going so well, things were going in the direction that I wanted them to. When I got my cancer diagnosis and the other events of my life unfolded during that period of time, so much of what I thought I wanted in my life was ripped from my grips, stripped away from me, and I didn't know how I would possibly survive without those things because those were the things that I had built my life around. But now, I look at my life and I see that those things that I wanted to hold on to were things that would have kept me from achieving things I never dreamed I ever would have been able to achieve. And so this line, what I'd have settled for, first of all, I didn't know I was settling. They were things that I really wanted. I look back now in hindsight and realized that that was just settling, that my vision for my life should have been much grander, should have been much higher than it was. But what I'd have settled for, God stripped away. Rich uses the line, "You've blown so far away. But what you've brought me to, I thought I could not reach." So, lying in a hospital bed 1 year ago today, if you had asked me, what are some things that you think are going to happen to you in the next year, I could not have come even close to describing to you the things that actually happened to me, the things that I have achieved, the things that have come into my life, the relationships that I have been blessed with that I did not have a year ago. Okay? The relationships that are now gone from my life have been replaced with relationships that are amazing. Things that I have accomplished. I was writing a book this time last year. When I got my cancer, I put that on hold, and I have just finished writing a brand new book. And I have 2 other books that are completely outlined, and I just need to write them. I don't know that I will ever get back to writing the book I was writing this time last year, but I do know that had I written that book, it would have been filled with incomplete information. So I'm going to have to go back to it and rewrite it. And I know that that book, when I eventually get back to it, will be a much better book. It will change more lives because it will be true to who I am. It will be true to the experiences that I now have. Back then, the book that I was writing on, I was writing in theory. Now, when I go back to write it, I will write it from real experience. And so the book that I've written right now that's going to come out at the end of this month, called Worry No More, is basically walking through the things that I had to put into place in my life to get to be able to talk to you today, to not be so totally consumed with anxiety and worry about the future, but to just accept my life for the way it is and to love it and to appreciate it and to appreciate the fact that there is always, always a plan. I may not know the plan, and in the moment, I might not think that the plan is good, but I recognize that my life has been guided down a path that I could not have foreseen, and I know that the path that I'm on has a purpose. And every day has meaning and value. So anyway, let me list for you, just because it's a fun exercise for me to have done. So, for example, this time last year, I had no intention of starting a podcast. I had no intention of putting videos up on YouTube that that I plan to expand on anymore. Someone had mentioned to me, "Hey, Bruce, you ought to do a podcast," and I thought, that might be cool, but I didn't really have a message to deliver, and I knew that I would need that in order to sustain it. I also know that had I started a podcast this time last year, I would have had to suspend it for a very long period of time while I just dealt with my recovery and dealt with healing from cancer, healing from pain, healing from mistakes that I made. And and that was all part of the journey that was blown so far away, but yet has brought me to places that I never dreamed I would come to. So I started a podcast this year, and you cannot even imagine how amazingly satisfying it is when hardly a day goes by that I don't get an email or a Facebook message or a tweet over Twitter, or somebody communicates with me in some way to let me know that something that I have said in my podcast has changed their lives. It's amazing to me. Um, I get to speak every single day, 7 days a week. I put my podcast out 5 days a week, but people are listening to it 7 days a week. I get to speak to thousands of people every single day who listen to me from currently 177 different countries around the world. Had you asked me to predict that, I never, ever could have said that I would have a podcast that was listened to by multiple thousands of people every single day in countries that I probably didn't even know existed. And that is just an amazing, amazing thing. I have had the chance on my podcast to interview absolutely amazing people. So people who I have looked up to for years and didn't know that I would ever get an opportunity to speak with them, let alone become friends with them. Most of the people I've had on my show as guests, I continue to interact with on a almost daily, if not weekly basis, and we have established real, true friendships. I never saw that coming, and I'm so thankful for that. Um, I've been invited to speak on other people's podcasts that I actually used to listen to over a year ago. I've been a guest because they've heard pieces of my story and they've asked me to come on their podcasts to tell my story. And, my story I don't think it's amazing in and of itself, but if my story can lift somebody up and encourage you in some way to make the changes in your life that I've made in my life, then I will go on every single podcast, every radio show in the world to spread the message that you can control your thoughts. You can change your life by changing your thoughts and the way you think about life, the way you think about yourself, the way you think about others. And all of that has to be bathed in love for yourself, love for your Creator, it has to be bathed in gratitude for every minute that you are alive. That's the biggest thing that has changed. I thought I was a pretty grateful person, but I had no idea. No idea. Now, every single moment of every single day, I recognize as a gift. And I am so excited every single morning when my alarm goes off. If I'm not up before the alarm, but when my alarm goes off, I literally, I stand up and I stretch out my arms and I say, thank you. Thank you for everything, absolutely everything. I have no complaints whatsoever because I don't. Sure, there are things in my life that are still stressful. There are still things in my life that I want to be different, but I have no complaints. I am so thankful for the life that I have, the life that I've been given. So I've been able to start a podcast. I've been able to meet amazing guests. I've been on so many other people's shows to talk about this transformation. Another really cool thing that happened was a guy named Craig Newton, who runs a group called Run for Fun Cruise, reached out to me shortly after my surgery and said, Bruce, what would you think about coming on a 7-day Caribbean cruise as our guest speaker and life coach? The cool thing about that is that I had been actively thinking about what could I do really fun for my boys, and how could I make their next birthdays really, really special? And so it was an answer to this silent prayer that I had prayed, and I had never been on a cruise in my life. Absolutely loved the Run for Fun cruise experience. I got to meet amazing people. I got to spend quality time with people, and it was just so much fun to be able to share that experience with my boys. It's also given me an opportunity to really revamp my public speaking career. Back in the late 1990s and early 2000s, I was on the road all the time speaking. I was in most of the Fortune 100 companies, and so I was a corporate trainer. So being in front of people and talking to people and motivating people to do amazing things is something that I loved to do, but I had to put all of that on hold for a number of years. And now I'm so excited to be able to get back to that. And so being the life coach on this cruise was just one of those amazing experiences. Another cool thing is because my podcast has been so popular, we're going to find out in 2 weeks. In fact, actually, the day I'm running the Boston Marathon, April 20th of 2015. So 2 weeks from today, I'm going to find out whether or not I am the recipient of what's called a Shorty Award. I have been notified that I'm a finalist, and so I'm in the final four of people for podcasts who are selected to receive this award for using social media in a way to lift people up and motivate people. So I was completely blown away. So again, this time last year, had you said, Bruce, do you think you're ever going to win a Shorty Award? I was like, yeah, right. No way. First of all, I don't really even do anything for which I would get a Shorty Award. So to not only to have been nominated, but to have been selected as a finalist is just amazing. So we'll find out in 2 weeks whether or not I'm a winner, but certainly just to be listed as a finalist is an amazing thing. The other thing is when I was lying in my hospital bed a year ago, I had serious doubts as to whether or not I would ever run a marathon again. I've been running marathons for the last 10 years of my life, and it has become part of who I am. I just love running. But given the nature of my surgery and the complications, it was doubtful whether or not I would be able to to be an endurance athlete anymore. My doctor told me that he thought that maybe 6 months after my surgery, I would start to feel like getting back to jogging just because of jarring, that area of my body. He said it's going to be about 6 months before you're probably going to even feel like you want to do that. exactly 7 months after my surgery, I ran and completed the Richmond Marathon in November. And so the first several months of my recovery were very, very touch and go. But once I turned the corner, I turned it hard, and I immediately set a goal of I will run a marathon. And I set the goal of running the Richmond Marathon. And so that was a huge milestone for me to be able to run it in November. And then on Thanksgiving Day, I got an amazing Thanksgiving gift. A guy named David Brown, who follows me on Twitter, he is the Chief Advancement Officer for the Forsyth Institute in Boston. And he reached out to me and said, Bruce, I have a charity bib for our charity. I have a charity bib for the Boston Marathon, and I would like you to wear it and have you run on our charity team and represent the Forsyth Institute. It has been, from the day I ran my very first marathon, running the Boston Marathon has always been on my bucket list. If you're not familiar with the Boston Marathon, it's like the Super Bowl. Okay, it's the Kentucky Derby if you're into horse racing, and the Kentucky Derby. It's the World's Cup of, if you're into soccer, just whatever the ultimate athletic event is. Most people who ever run a marathon, they dream of someday running Boston. It's well over 100 years old, and it is just an amazing event. And so when David reached out to me and said, Bruce, I want you to run the Boston Marathon for Forsyth, it was a gift. And so, again, had you asked me a year ago, Bruce, do you think you'll be running the Boston Marathon next year? So in 2 weeks, I am going to run the Boston Marathon. 2 weeks. So today is April 6th of 2015. I will run it on April 20th of 2015, and I am so excited. It doesn't really matter to me how it turns out. I absolutely will finish, even if I have to crawl across it. But I'm not going there to race. I'm just going to experience, and I'm thrilled to be able to do it as a way to bring awareness and to raise money for the Forsyth Institute and the amazing work they're doing in dental research and providing dental care for children, which is near and dear to my heart. So I've got so many things for which to be thankful. And I think I'm just gonna. There are other things that I can rattle off. I mean, one other thing that's really cool is that I've been asked to be the guest speaker for the American Cancer Society's Relay for Life Survivors Banquet next month in May. And that is just such a huge honor for me, because the Relay for Life is the American Cancer Society's largest fundraising event. It brings in billions of dollars to the American Cancer Society each year. And so for the local Greater Richmond area chapter to reach out to me and say, Bruce, we've heard your story, and we would like you to be the speaker at our Cancer Survivors Banquet, was just such an amazing honor to me. And so, again, I keep going back to this line from the Rich Mullins song entitled Home. What I'd have settled for, you've blown so far away. But what you've brought me to, I thought I could not reach. I am so thankful for you, and the fact that you listen to my voice, the fact that you share this with other people, and you tell other people that they should listen to me, is just such an amazing blessing to me. Okay, I love you. Your life can be just as amazing. Your story can be just as moving and motivating as mine is. Okay, there's nothing special about me. I just decided that I was not going to be a victim of circumstance, that I was going to take the lemons and make lemonade. Okay, I was going to take the hard times, I was going to take the tragedies and turn them into triumph. And if nothing else, I would die trying, because here's the reality is we're all going to die someday. But I'd like it to be more on my terms, and to go out being a generous, loving, giving person rather than being bitter and angry and upset. So I know that you want the same for your life. If I can do anything to help you achieve that, please let me know. Please reach out to me. You can go to brucevanhorn.com and use the contact form. You can use anything that you want. There are lots of ways to communicate with me is basically what I'm saying. But anyway, I love you. Life is a marathon, so let's train for it.